The most exciting thing for me about the Wagner Ring this year in Seattle is the opportunity to do it all in one shot. I really do not like to conduct Rheingold and then to rehearse Walküre for 2 months or half a year, and then to present Walküre and then work on Siegfried and so on and so forth, because I just miss if I don't get to do the whole ring in 1 week. I miss the essence of the work. Especially I find this problem in Rheingold. I don't think that Rheingold should be played by itself. I don't think it's an evening at the opera. I think that Rheingold only works if you hear it an evening before you go to see Walküre. And if you're there for the whole ring, then anyway, you're not doing much else, especially if it's in Seattle. In New York, you're probably going to work between ring performances. But in Seattle, you don't. So the whole week is dedicated to the ring, and that's how it should be. When I did my first entire ring in Adelaide in 2004, it was a very interesting approach to the staging and performances of the ring, because they knew that in Adelaide, people are not going to fly over to see Rheingold and then a few months later will come to see the next show. So they thought, how can we do that? We're not Bayreuth. Bayreuth can do the whole ring together in 1 year as they're doing this year. They start rehearsing in May, and they rehearse through the end of July, and then they present the entire ring. But in Adelaide, what they decided to do is to rehearse the first 2 operas in 2003. For about 2 months, we rehearsed them. We brought them all to the last piano rehearsal, no orchestra rehearsals. And then the next year, we all came back. We did 2 months of rehearsals of the other 2 operas. And then I did rehearsals with the orchestra. We had 40 sessions for the entire ring. And then we presented the ring, because they knew the only way they can get the audiences to Adelaide is by presenting an entire cycle. That is what interests people. And sure enough, we had wonderful audiences, and I think because it was just presented as one. The problem for a conductor doing this is that you really have to trust your orchestra, because usually a regular opera production, we do staging rehearsals, musical rehearsals at the piano with the singers. Then we go on stage, we fit it to the stage with the sets, the conductor starts to work with the orchestra, then you have stage orchestra rehearsals, putting everything together, then we have a Hauptprobe, what they call in Germany, which is the pre-general. Then there's the general. If there are 2 casts, one cast gets 1 rehearsal, the other cast gets the other rehearsal, and then you have 2 days off, and then you open the show. And then you run it. If you're in Israel, you can run it up to 12 times in a row, back to back, which is kind of tiring. And if it's in Europe or at the Met, you will do every few days a performance. The problem with doing the ring in one shot with all the rehearsals being bunched together is that the time between the general rehearsal of Rheingold and the first performance is 10 days. And in those 10 days, you play the other 3 operas. So on a Sunday, you might rehearse Rheingold, and on Monday, you rehearse the general rehearsal for Walküre. You do like a cycle in general rehearsal form. Then you have 2 or 3 days off, and then you go to Wagner. So it's very scary to go there to the beginning of the first performance, knowing that you rehearsed it last 10 days ago. This is one reason why opera companies do not do that, because a lot of conductors say it's not possible. As some of you know from me taking over the performances at the Met, I like challenges and crazy things, and I think that for me it proves the point that there is such a thing as rehearsing something to death, and over-rehearsing definitely, and the best way to do it is to just trust the orchestra. They're in the Wagner spirit. Many, many pages in the scores look similar. It's the same essence, and if the conductor knows what he's doing and he's leading them, they don't need to rehearse the work, perform it, and then rehearse the other work. And it's much, much more exciting for everybody. But as I said, not a lot of theaters do that, so I'm happy that they rehearsed the ring already 3 times, and they've played it. And I've done, since 2003, a lot of Wagner in Seattle, so the orchestra has not played Wagner with anybody else there. They know my style, they know what I'm doing. We opened with Parsifal in 2003, the new building, the McCaw Hall. Then I did Flying Dutchman. Then we did Lohengrin. Then I did Fidelio there, so they know my style. The McCaw Hall, which we opened in 2003, is for me the best opera acoustics in the world. I've conducted in many, many theaters, and there are good theaters and very bad theaters in Europe, but this is the best place to play Wagner outside of Bayreuth. the sound from the orchestra, you don't see the orchestra. I mean, you see the lights from the orchestra, but you don't see the musicians. You don't see the conductor. And the sound is just incredible. When we came in 2003 in summer, we rehearsed Parsifal in the rehearsal room. And then when we came to stage to do the first rehearsal on stage, and I put the baton down for the first A-flat in the strings, we were flabbergasted. The sound was so amazing. And what one can do in Seattle, which you could not do in other places, is you can let the orchestra play at any written dynamics, any given dynamics by the composer. You never have to do this, which is what you do 90% of the time when you're conducting Wagner. You're going, don't play, just be quiet. And of course in Bayreuth this is not a problem. When I went first to Bayreuth in '93 to hear Barenboim's Tristan, I was in the pit, and I couldn't believe how loud they play in the pit in Bayreuth. It's amazing, and it's a huge orchestra. And it's never a problem, and this is what Wagner had in mind. And that's why when you complain about Wagner's writing for the voice and the demands on the carrying power of the voice in comparison to the orchestra, you have to keep in mind that he composed it for a place where this is not a problem. So taking it out of context, putting it at the Met, with a huge hall, 4,000 seats, and a very, very large and open orchestra pit, you will have problems. But in Seattle, we don't have this problem. So this is another reason I'm very, very excited about the Ring there.